The shiur is dedicated leZecher Nishmas Rachalea Bas Rav Chaim Tzvi. We have, till this point, examined from an overall perspective the configuration and the overall structure of Hallel. We also probed the first Perek of Hallel, which is Kuf Yud Gimel, and in this shiur we'll be examining Mizmor Kuf Yud Daled, otherwise known as Hallel Mitzri. The Hallel Mitzri that we spoke about, which of course relates to the Hallel that is recited every Yom Tiv. So that Hallel is primarily related to this specific Perek Kuf Yud Daled in Tehillim. The Perek that begins B'tzeis Yisrael Mimitzrayim Beis Yaakov Mi'am Loves. You have in front of you the schemata and Mizmor that can basically be divided into four segments. You'll notice the first segment consists of Psukim Aleph and Beis. The second segment is Gimel and Daled. The third segment is Hey and Vav. And the fourth segment is Zayin and Ches. And in Yirtzeh Hashem we're going to examine that schemata in a little while. This Mizmor obviously is very well known. It's a Mizmor that is recited, as I said, on an ongoing basis whenever we say Hallel on Yom Tiv, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. As well, the Mizmor is recited in Rosh Chodesh, even when we say the Chatzi Hallel, which was the Minhag in Bavel that we mentioned. And clearly the Mizmor begins, its point of departure, its focus is Yetzias Mitzrayim. And that's how the Mizmor begins. B'tzeis Yisrael Mimitzrayim Beis Yaakov Mi'am Loves. So clearly the initial thrust of the Mizmor relates to Yetzias Mitzrayim. When Kol Yisrael went out of Egypt, the household of Yaakov Me'am Loes, which we'll discuss in Yirtzeh Hashem a bit later, from somehow they came from a area where people spoke a foreign tongue. Me'am Loes. And we will see the Radak deals with this particular issue. But as I said, we begin by focusing on Yetzias Mitzrayim. We continue. We'll just first get to the nuts and bolts, the basic translation of this Mizmor, and then we'll look into it a bit further. Haisa Yehuda Lekadsho. The Mizmor goes on to say that Yehuda, in effect, becomes somehow the Eretz Kodesh of Hashem Yisbarach, or if you will, Lekadsho, referring to his sanctuary. Somehow the Mefarshim say Yibanu Shalom singled out Shevet Yehuda. They were the ones who were Mekadesh Shem Shamayim at Kriyas Yamsuf, the Medrash that is well known, that Nachshon ben Aminadav was the first one to jump into the cascading waters. There was an act of Mesiras Nefesh, and that's embedded in this language. Haisa Yehuda Lekadsho. And perhaps also we have a reference here to Matan Torah, where the Pasha in Yisrael tells us, Ribbono Shel Olam indicated to us in Perek Yutes, Sefer Shmos, that we're going to be a Mamlechas Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. Haisa Yehuda Lekadsho. The idea of the fact that Klal Yisrael is going to be an Am Kodesh, a sanctified nation. And we continue, Yisrael Mamshalosav. And again, Eretz Yisrael is, if you will, the dominion, the Eretz Memshala of the Ribbono Shel Olam. Certainly, that we are quite familiar with. Yisrael Mamshalosav, or perhaps itself a reference to Klal Yisrael, namely, Yehuda is Lekadsho, and Yisrael Mamshalosav. And therefore, when Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim, it's well known that both Yehuda and Yisrael, or some interpreted referring to Eretz Yehuda and Eretz Yisrael, these are the lands that Hashem Yisbarach chose to establish His Memshala. And obviously, again, as I said, we have here a reference to Matan Torah, where Klal Yisrael became the Am Kadosh. The Psukim continue, Hayam Ra Vayanos. The sea somehow saw and fled. Hayardain Yisov V'Achar. The Yardain turned backwards. Here we have a reference to, again, the earlier psukim that we mentioned. When Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim, so here the pasuk says, Hayam Ra Vayanos. The Yam, as it were, ran, and as a result, the place that the Yam occupied was now dry land. Uklal Yisrael, the pasuk says, Holchu bayabosha b'soch hayam. The Yam, so to speak, simply